Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today we'll be making the Marguerite dress by CKC pattern. It's a very beautiful dress. It has an option where instead of this you can just put a band on the bottom, and it's really pretty, so beautiful, and it's lined with trim at the end, which I love so much. And the front panel, I love the little front panel because you can add any little details to the front. You can even add an embroidery design in the front, and it will be so pretty to match your dress. And this one I made the first time I made this pattern, and this is the one that we're going to be making in the video today. And it's so pretty, I love it. And let's start. First, we will have the front body center. Then we have side pieces that goes on each side. And I will add some piping to the side to make it pop a little. And then we have the two of the back bodies. For the bottom, we have the two back, then the two straps. Then you have the flutter sleeves. I am going to line mine, so I have 4 pieces. If you're not going to line it, you only need 2. Then you have the bodice, the lining for the bodice, the front bodice. And this is my skirt trim, which is different from the band. The band is optional. This is the trim, and this is my skirt waffle piece, which is optional. You can either do the waffle or you can do the band, and I'm doing the waffle, so I have 4 pieces of this one and 2 pieces for the band. And this will be my men's skirt. This is my men's skirt. I have 2 pieces of this one. I'm also gonna use some clips, my snippet scissors, regular scissors, elastic, and some 6-inch ruler, and this marking pen, and of course seam ripper. Always need your seam ripper, and some trim to add to the skirt. First, we're going to clip the piping and sew a straight line. We're gonna sew 2 basting stitch. Now we're gonna sew aside to our main front panel. We're gonna take it right side facing each other, and we're going to pin them together. Now we're gonna take it to the machine, and be careful not to sew this in. You can clip them here to make it easy so you don't sew it in. We're gonna sew this all the way down at a 3/8 inch allowance. Now I'm going to cut all the extra piping. Now we're gonna get ready for our straps. We're gonna fold it in half and iron. Open it up and fold this in half and iron. And then you're gonna do the same thing for the other side and fold it in half and iron the whole thing. When you're done, you fold it in half again. So now you have 4 pieces for your strap. Repeat with the other strap. Now you have 2 strap pieces. Now we're gonna get ready to get our flutter sleeve ready. We're gonna take 1 flutter sleeve. If you're not going to add trim, you can skip this step. If you're gonna add trim to it, then go ahead and continue. You will pin the strap. You will pin it all the way down, following the curve. We'll go all the way to where the curve is. And repeat, and we're gonna sew 1 plastic stitch all the way around. Now we're gonna take our lining piece for flutter and put it on top of each other, right side facing each other. And we will pin it curved side and sew it as a 3-inch seam allowance. Repeat with the other flutter. We're just going to sew across from where the curve is as a 3-inch seam allowance. Now we're going to turn our pieces. Now you're going to take your flutter and iron it so it can stay flat. Be careful with your trim and your iron. Now we will go to the machine and top stitch as 1/8 of an inch. Now we're going to trim the little excess. Now we're going to take it to the machine and sew 2 straight long stitch. So the longest stitch, you will use the longest stitch in your machine and sew 1 long line here. To take our straps and measure half an inch and mark on each side. Repeat with the other strap. Usually I will measure from one end of my mark to the other 3, 4. And see that my strap. Now I want my flutter to sandwich between my strap. So I want to pull my thread, my long stitch thread, and pull it all the way until this is the same size as where I mark the inside of my marking. So pull it gently so it doesn't break until my flutter is the same size as my two markings. I will tie the end of my thread. Now what you want to do is open your strap and make sure the end of your flutter goes where the marking is. Exactly where the marking is. And pin. Do the same for this side. And I'll make sure your flutter is sandwiched between your straps, right in the middle. And fold your strap over and pin. It goes straight in the middle. After you're done, it should look like this. You repeat with the other strap. Make sure the other strap mirrored this strap, especially if you're not going to do the lining on the strap. Make sure it is mirrored. Repeat with the other strap. Open your strap, find your two markings, and make sure your flutter is the same size inside your marking. So you go pull your top gently so your top thread doesn't break. Tie your thread. Now make sure your flutter are mirrored. Now we're gonna take it to the sewing machine and sew one line here and one line on the bottom to hold it flat. Now we're going to attach our flutter to our front panel. Now take one of your flutter, make sure it's supposed to go like this. So we want the flutter part to go outside of your sleeves. And we will pin it right on top where your stitches is and where your two stitches are. Repeat with the other flutter and make sure they are opposite of each other. Make sure this is your right side facing your right side. And we're gonna go and sew a stay stitch on the machine. For this next part, to keep my flutter out of the way so I don't sew on it, I will fold it over and pin it to the strap to keep it out of the way. Now I will take my front lining and attach it to my front panel with the flutter sandwich in between. And I will pin it and make sure I match all the corners. Match all your corners. Now we'll take this to the machine and sew the side, sew all this straight side and this curved side at a 3/8 inch allowance. All this going to snip the corners to help it lay flatter, so it can lay flat. Now you will open up your top and push the corner in. And take it to your iron and iron the front. Now we're going to work on our back bodice. We're going to find the center of our back bodice, and we're going to pin the center. And we're going to find the sign. The pattern has the measurement for the two sides. Depending on what size you're doing, it tells you where you need to put your other pin. And you will mark it from the center to one side and mark it again from the other center to the other side. You will take your front bodice and put your back bodice up, and your front bodice with the lining facing you, and your right where you put the second marking to your other side, and your straps. You will do the same with the other side. We're gonna go to the machine and sew a straight line right where the strap is. Now we're going to take our back bodice lining and put it on top with the right face facing each other. Right side facing each other. And we will pin, make sure your flutter is pinned to your strap so you don't accidentally sew into it. You can take off this pin. We will then take it to the machine and sew one straight line right on the top at a 3/8" allowance. Now we're going to sew up our side, two side with the back. So we're going to make sure that the back lining does not your flutter doesn't twist around, so you don't accidentally put it like this. So you want it straight. You want your strap as straight as possible, and take your back and put it on top and open up the front and put your back on top of it, facing each other, with the right side facing each other. Then we're going to match the end and pan. They should be the same size, and if one of them it's a little tiny bit, you can trim it. You want to do the same thing for the other side. Your back bodice should be a lot longer than your, get it out of the way. And now we're going to sew the side, both of the side, at a 3-inch seam allowance. To take our front bodice and put it, take it to the iron and iron it on so we can stitch the top. Now we're going to take our bodice and iron it flat and get it ready to top stitch. I like to have my seam goes one inside flat and iron. Now we're taking our top and we're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch allowance all the way around the top, front and back. Now it's time to get our bodice ready for casting. We're going to take our 1 inch. We're going to measure 1 inch down from our top stitch and mark. If you're doing a size smaller than 7, you will do 1 casting. If you're doing size 7 and up, you will do 2 line. You will need 2 casting. Now we'll take our machine. I usually just leave some of the elastic so it doesn't get messed up. It'll be hard to fix. So I usually just pull and make sure they are even. And that's what your top should look like. And all your loose thread and cut them up and set aside while we work on the skirt. Now it's time to work on your skirt. This is our main panel skirt. There's two of them, and two of the trim. Have two trim and four for the skirt waffle. What we'll do next, we'll take our band long. We'll take one of our band long way, and we'll take the other band and we will sew it together to make one big loop. We'll do right side facing each other, and we will do the same thing for the other side and make sure it is straight and nothing is twisted. We'll do this for the band. We'll also do the same thing for the top skirt. We'll sew the short side together, right side together, and pin. We'll repeat this step with our bottom piece. There's 4 of the bottom piece, so it'll be a lot longer than our other one. Make sure they are not upside down when you sew them together. And we'll do the same. We'll take our first piece and our second piece and sew it into one big long piece, and making sure that none of our pieces are twisted. We'll continue doing the same thing until we have one big loop. Then at the end we'll put those two together. We'll take all 3 of our pieces and sew it at a 3/8 seam allowance on the machine, and then we're gonna take it, after we sew it on the machine, we're gonna take it to our serger and serge the edge so it doesn't fray. Now I'm gonna take all my pieces and iron all those lines and my stitch flat. Now we're gonna go get our bottom piece, a very long piece, ready to hem. And you can just start wherever, doesn't matter where you start. But a 1/4 inch, measure a 1/4 inch and iron. And you're gonna do this all around. You're gonna do this all around and just measure a 1/4 inch and iron. Measure a 1/4 inch. Now we're going to repeat the step and fold it over so the raw edges is not showing. Just fold it over a 1/4 inch again and iron. Since the first folding was a 1/4 inch, you can just fold it over. If you want to be precise, you can measure it again. Now we're gonna take our folded edge and we're gonna sew one straight line, 1/8 inch allowance to the very end and do our hemming. We're gonna sew it all the way around the whole thing. Now we're going to take our top skirt and our trim and we're going to sew them together. We're going to open up our skirt, make sure it's not inside out and upside down. Also, if you have a directional, make sure it's not upside down. You will match the seam and pin together. You will do this all around the bottom of the skirt and pin your After we're done pinning, we're going to take our skirt to our machine and sew at a 3-inch allowance on the machine. And after you're done sewing it, serge it so it doesn't fray. Now we're getting ready to attach our bottom piece to a top skirt. To do that, we need to sew a long stitch all the way on the top of our bottom piece. We're going to do 2 long stitch on the machine so we can get it ready to attach to our top skirt. Now it's time to pin your top skirt to the bottom piece. I usually divide my skirt in 2/4. I take the 2 seams of my skirt and put it together and fold it over and turn it into 2/4 and measure. And I will mark it. Now I will take my bottom skirt and I will find each of the end that has the seam and attach it to my marking and the end of my seam. I will take this one and attach it. I will find my other mark, my other centerpiece, and find my other stitch because this is twice as long as this. I will mark this. I will do the same for the other side. Find my seam and put it together with right side facing each other. Now I will do the same with the center mark with the seam. Now you can go around and pin your skirt together. Do this for the whole skirt. I pin it a little loose because my bottom skirt is a little bit bigger than my top skirt. Also, what you can do, you can find your top thread and pull until they are the same size. I'd rather do it this way. Now I will take this to the machine and sew all around at a 3/8 inch allowance. Now we're going to sew a long stitch on the top of our skirt to get it ready to attach to our bodice. Make sure your center seam is going the same direction as the bottom. Now I'm going to get my bodice ready to attach my skirt to my bodice. I measured the bottom part of my bodice, and with that measurement, I will take my skirt and pull the top thread of my skirt, and pull the thread until my skirt is the same size as the bottom of my bodice. Pull the top thread and be careful so you don't break the thread, and just pull on it until it is as big as your bodice. Make sure when you measure your bodice, you stretch this. You don't want to measure it like this, then it'll be too small. You want to stretch it and measure all the way around. Now we're going to pull the top together and make sure this both sides of your skirts are equal. Make sure your skirt is as even as possible. Now we are ready to attach our skirt to our bodice. Our bodice, it's inside out. We're going to take our skirt and put it inside our bodice with our skirt right way together, and we're going to pin our bodice to our skirt. We're going to pin it all the way around. I usually start on the back so the front of my skirt can be a little bit more full all the way around. Make sure you catch both front and pieces in. I like to have my side seam of the skirt go with the side seam of my dresses and continue pinning. And now I'm going to take and sew all around at 3/8 inch allowance all the way around. Make sure you catch all your lining and your main panel and your skirt. You're gonna sew it 2 inch allowance, and after I'm done sewing, I will serge it. Now we are all done with our dress. Looks all pretty. Look how pretty this flutter shape is. I love the lining and the trim at the end. And look how beautiful. Can't wait to see what you guys make. And if you guys make this dress, please, you can let me know and tag me on social media in Instagram or Facebook. Hope you love it.